Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start yet another themed reading vlog, and this one I'm quite excited about because it is mermaid books, and I love books and stories about mermaids, and it seems like we are getting more of these days. So I'm very excited about that. And so in this vlog, I want to read 3 kind of new mermaid books. I think 2 of them were released this year, and then one is a little bit older. It's from 2021. We'll just see what the mermaids are up to in fiction right now. So the 3 books I want to talk about. The first one is Chlorine by Jade Song, and this is more Asian inspired. It is the story of a girl who is, I think, Chinese American, and she's a swimmer and she turns into a mermaid, whatever that means. This one we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. Then we have American Mermaid by Julia Langbein, and this one, I just love the cover. It looks so good. When I look at that cover, I want to be a mermaid. So with this one, I actually don't quite know what it's about. Okay, it seems to be about a woman who wrote a novel called American Mermaid, and that becomes a surprise bestseller. The one thing I see right now is that the main character in this one is called Penelope, while Penelope in Chlorine is something very different. If you've read the book, you know. But yeah, that is my second choice. And then the third book I want to try is All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slater. And this is the one that is already a little bit older, and it also seems to be quite different in tone because this is more of a gothic tale about a girl whose family have been kind of sacrificing children to the mer people. It's about that family secret, stuff like that. So that one seems a little bit darker, so this will probably be the last book I read when it goes more into autumn. Those are the books I want to read. I will always update you when I'm halfway through a book and when I've finished it, and we'll just see what the mermaids are up to. So currently I am about halfway through Chlorine, actually a little bit more than halfway, so it is time for the first update for that. And so far I'm not really sure whether I'm really liking the book. I am liking it, it's definitely engaging, but it's also quite aggressive in a way. It has this very kind of edgy writing style, and I've seen this list of like hot girl books on Goodreads that has a lot of like Ottessa Moshfegh and stuff like that, so I guess it would fit right in with those kinds of books just from the vibes that I'm getting and from what other people have told me about them. So Chlorine, definitely a hot girl book. If you're still in your hot girl summer, then I would recommend picking it up. So we're following this girl who is an athlete swimmer, and she has always dreamt about water and about being a mermaid. And so this book kind of mixes her feelings as a Chinese American girl, as a girl in like competitive sports, and then just all the pressures that come with both of these things. So on the one hand, the immense pressure to be very good at school and to have the best grades and to get into the best schools, and then the pressure of being just this like very successful like swimmer and making the swim team, winning all of the meets and stuff like that. So in that regard, it kind of reminds me of Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, which also deals with like this immense pressure that teenagers can be under. But I'm intrigued to see kind of like the direction that Chlorine will take with that. The writing styles are very different though, just to make that very clear. But the theme, I guess, kind of reminds me of that. With Chlorine, we also have a little bit of a sapphic relationship, even though I would not go into this book expecting romance. It's very much the opposite of that. But we basically have two girls who are kind of like best friends, but at least one of the girls wants to be more. And so the way this book is structured is that we get the narrative of our main character, Ren, as like a normal like narrative through time, I guess, just telling the story in chronological order with a little bit of hints towards the future. But then we get these chapters from Kathy's point of view, which is the other girl, and those are in the future when Ren is already a mermaid. Kathy is writing letters to her, kind of apologizing and talking about her feelings. So that's kind of like the structure, because at first I was confused that there's two audiobook narrators, but that is because Cassie has these like in-between chapters. And this like friendship of those two girls is like also very interesting to me, just because we have kind of like a very strong like power imbalance between them, because I guess Kathy is much more involved in this relationship, and that gives Ren power over her in a way. So definitely interesting themes and a very interesting writing style. There is a lot of talk about menstruation, and in a way I appreciate that, and especially when she talks about her first period, I felt like it is very, I wouldn't say gross, because I don't think that it is per se gross, but just the way it is described, the words that are used definitely have this very brutal, violent feeling to it. And I think that if you are a woman, you can probably like get why it's written in that way. But I imagine if you are a person who has not menstruated before, then that's probably a bit much. I don't know. I would love to hear opinions on that if you've read the book and you have not had a menstruation ever. So yeah, there's a lot of that. There is also some like very bizarre scenes about that I'm still unsure how I feel about that. Like just like the whole Penelope bathroom stall thing. It's a bit much, but then it's teenage girls. So is it though? Yeah, so as I said, I'm not quite sure if I'm really liking this, but I feel entertained, and it is quite a short read, and I'm intrigued to see what becoming the mermaid in the end will kind of mean. So I will finish the book and I will update you once I did that. So I finished Chlorine and I wanted to give you a bit of an update. So this book was a lot, like the second half was definitely a lot. The second half is where the more horror-y bits come into play, but I wouldn't expect like creepy, scary horror. It's more like tense kind of body horror stuff that is happening. This book is very edgy, very angry, and I would say rightfully so, but I enjoyed the first half way more than the second half, when we get all of these like kind of like horror or magical or whatever things, like however you want to decide this is going. I think there is a lot left up for interpretation, but yeah, in the end I decided to give this book 3.5 stars because I thought the beginning was well done, but then it just wasn't my kind of like book, I would say. It reminded me a little bit of Cherish Farah, which is a book I really did not like, and the ending kind of went into a similar direction or gave me just similar vibes, so I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I would still say if you're interested in the book, definitely go read it, and especially if you like these like hot girl books that you can see on the Goodreads lists that are just very weird, angry, feminist kind of books, then I would say definitely try Chlorine. I think it would work very well if you enjoy those kind of books. sometimes I just feel too dumb for these kind of books, let's be honest. Like, I don't really know what they're trying to tell me. So I think that's mostly it, that maybe it is so metaphorical that I don't really get it. And that's fine, you know, not every book has to be written for me. That's totally fine. I don't know if I really want to say much else that I haven't said before. I think I just really enjoyed the like themes at the beginning where we have the whole immigration plot line. I really liked this idea of the relatives telling our main character and her family that they're so lucky that they can go to the US, but that it didn't feel that way to her because she gets to this like completely strange land. Nobody speaks her language, and other people make fun of her or think she's stupid because she can't express herself yet, and stuff like that. So I really like that perspective. I always enjoy that when it's brought up in books like that, because I think it's a very, very, very important point that people oftentimes forget, especially people in Western countries who think that immigrants are so lucky to be able to live in our country. So yeah, I think that is just very important. And I liked the whole discussion about sports, about being an athlete, the importance that this has in the American system, which is a very unique thing. We really don't have that here in Germany, but was still interesting to read about. The way that her coach had such a big influence on her, the way his behavior was described, definitely felt so icky and something where you would usually say, oh my God, that should not be a thing. Like, we should not give any kind of teacher or coach this kind of power over our children. At the same time, it's done again and again and again in the US because there's this huge deal about like college sports and sports in school and stuff. So I really like this discussion. It really reminded me of swimming. I didn't do it for very long, but I really enjoyed it when I was young. And so this book was kind of like, I'm glad I did not pursue it, I guess. But there were some descriptions about her just feeling so alive in the water that I could really feel, because that's the same for me. I'm such a water person and I love being in the water. I think I have like this natural knack for swimming as well, and so I could really relate to that aspect too. But yeah, as I said, like the ending, like the descent, the like strangeness, the kind of body horror that happens at the end, I just didn't really get it. Or I know it was trying to say something, but I'm just not quite clear on what it was or why it was put quite into this form of a story, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but overall, still did enjoy it. Still would recommend it if you like weird literary fiction. And I'm intrigued to see what the other mermaid books hold in store for me. So I am halfway through American Mermaid, and so far this book unfortunately is a big letdown for me. I feel very disappointed so far. I had such high hopes for this book because the description sounds amazing. So basically we are following a young woman. She's in her 30s and she has published a book while she was working as a teacher in a very underpaid job. But then her book got praised by a guy on TikTok or something, and it was a huge success. And so now she has the opportunity to make it into a movie. And because she really needs money for a medical procedure, she decides to go along with it. And I thought we would look at the actual filming process of this movie now, but we're not. We are following this character as she discusses writing the script for the movie with two guys who are more experienced as screenwriters, and so she's supposed to work with them. But they're like very brosy bros. Like if you imagine LA bros, that's probably what you imagine. They're so annoying, and I think that is absolutely on purpose, but because that's pretty much all we get in the main storyline, it's just frustrating and boring, and I don't know. I really don't know. And then in the descriptions it said something like mysterious things start getting wrong and maybe now they're haunted by an actual mermaid. But I don't know if these things have already happened, because like nothing really has happened yet. And I'm like more than halfway through the book. So yeah, it's very, very boring, very LA, very like rich people party stuff. And it does have commentary, but not that I really enjoy, I guess. And then what we also get is excerpts from the actual book, and those I enjoy much more. And in that book we are following two like climate scientists, and they find a baby on the beach, and the baby is a mermaid. And they decide to raise that child as a human with the help of a doctor who they kind of pressure into helping them. And so we are following this girl as she grows up as a disabled girl. She can't walk, she uses a wheelchair, she has immense pain because of her actually being a mermaid. And she finds out when she's an adult, and then we follow that storyline kind of. So I enjoy that more, but since this is not the main point of the book, I just feel like I don't know. Honestly, if I would ever DNF books, I would DNF this one, because I don't have fun listening to it. I don't really feel like I gain anything for listening to it. Like, that Hollywood is sexist, I know. And seriously, all the discussions that are portrayed with these like bro screenwriter guys, they're just painful. They're just so painful. And ugh, you know? I expected something completely different from this book. And so now I'm like, what am I actually listening to here? So I'll update you when I finish the book. Let's hope that something exciting, maybe even a little bit creepy, will start happening, but my hopes are very low, to be honest. So, I finished American Mermaid, and unfortunately, this was such a disappointment. I was so sad. I really wanted to love this book, and I just did not. I am really quite disappointed by this. I expected so much more from it. The synopsis promised me a movie production, and all I got was like screenwriting and rich people parties. And the synopsis promised me mysterious things starting to go wrong. So I expected a haunting, but what I got was just drunk people. So very disappointed with that. This book also discusses asexuality in an interesting but sometimes very weird way, where I still don't know how I feel about it, because yeah, there's some sentences in that book that are so triggering, and I don't know how I feel about it. Like, this whole thing with like creatures or like robots being asexual, I think is a very interesting thing to look at, because at least in this one with the mermaids, they are not interested in romantic relationships or our like definition of love. But I think in this one, at the end, it comes back around and just manages to get quite an interesting and good perspective on what love actually is. So I did enjoy that quite a bit. But then at the same time, there's some things that are said about our main character by her family, about asexuality, that were just so wrong. And they're not like really challenged apart from the main character being like, oh, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is interesting to look at it that way, but I wish it would have done not more, but a little bit, it would have done it a little bit differently. But yeah, overall, I was just disappointed. This was so boring. This is one of those books that I would have probably just DNF'd if I would ever DNF books, because I knew that I wouldn't love it in the end. I knew that it would just be boring, but I also didn't hate read it. You know, when sometimes you read a book just because it's bad, and that still gives you some kind of a thrill. This one did nothing. It did nothing. I was just bored, to be honest. So that was really sad, but I think that's all I'm gonna say about this book, because I don't really have any more to say. Like, if you enjoy reading about rich people getting drunk all the time, doing some weird stuff in the end that made no sense, just a character that is not understanding what's going on around her, I don't know. I think it also has quite low ratings on Goodreads, which I didn't check before I started the book. Maybe I should have. So unfortunately, this one is not a win, but we have one more mermaid book to go. So this one could still be my new favorite mermaid book. We'll see. So I'm in the middle of the next mermaid book, and I wanted to give you a quick update. Now, I'm still sick. That's also why I tried to delay this update a little bit so my voice wouldn't be so horrible. But unfortunately, it's just not going as well as I thought. So we're just gonna do the update now. I also have a cat right there. This is my home office setup. She loves it. She is enjoying the hell out of it. So the book I'm reading is All the Murmuring Bones, and this one is, I would say, a lot darker than the other two books I talked about in this vlog. In this one we are following a girl called Murren, and this one is heavily inspired by Irish folklore. We have this city of Breakwater, where for a very, very long time the family of the O'Malleys has been very influential. They are very rich, they have a lot of influence, but in more recent years that has all changed. Murren is kind of the last girl of her family. At the beginning of the book, she thinks that her parents are dead and she was raised by her grandparents. But when we start the book, her grandfather has just passed away, and that sets things into motion where she is just dealt with like a lot of loss in her life, but then also the possibility that maybe her parents are not dead. So she starts looking for them, basically. So that's the kind of setup of the story, and I really loved the beginning. The beginning is so eerie and has such great atmosphere when you hear about this family of the O'Malleys and their influence and where that comes from, the kind of deal with the sea that they have made. And so I really, really loved the beginning of this. And then the further we get, I feel like it kind of loses some of the drive. It is interesting. She's so cute. Why is she so cute? But I think it kind of loses itself a little bit in the folklore. And that is something that I have experienced before with book about mermaids, that it gets a little bit lost, you know? because there is so much like lore about mermaids, about sirens, about other creatures like selkies or whatever they're all called. And so sometimes it can just get a little bit much, I guess. And that's something that I feel with this story, that it just loses itself a little bit with all of these like creatures and all of these tales. Our main character does tell us some of the more popular tales about mermaids, and I feel like those are like actual stories that I've also heard before. So yeah, we just have a lot of that, a lot of the lore and a lot of these like mythical beings. And at the same time, I just feel like the book itself doesn't quite know what it's trying to do. There are elements I really like, and then there's elements that I think are a bit odd. This book gets very, very dark in some moments, and then very confusing in some moments. Like, there is a scene where our main character suddenly, like out of the blue, has sex with someone. And I was like, did I imagine that? Like, did that just happen? And it's not explicit. It just felt so random for the characters as well. And yeah, so there is like some like very odd things that happen in this book. But I am entertained. So it's not that I'm not enjoying it. I just don't think it will be a favorite. But I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. Now, I think I have less than 4 hours left, so I'm quite a bit more than halfway through. There is definitely still some mysteries that I hope will be resolved by the end, and I will let you know what I think once I get to the end of it. So we're still in the COVID phase, and I feel like all of my updates that I'm currently filming for vlogs look like this. Me on the couch with the cat, pretty much immobile, but oh well. I have finished my audiobook of All the Murmuring Bones, and so this is the final update for this vlog. Now, I ended up really enjoying the ending of this book. I for the longest time really wasn't sure where it was going or what the kind of point was, but I think that if more of the book would have been what we got at the end and that just fleshed out more, I think I would have enjoyed it even more. I really liked the last couple of bits that we got and actually learning more about the parents of our main character. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think if you're into mythology, especially like these Irish, like cold coasts and mer people and all of that, I think you can have a lot of fun with this book. As it is, I gave it 4 stars, but it's more like a 3.75, I would say, because I still think that it was just a little bit too meandering for me, and it just mixed in a little bit too much of the folklore elements, so that it just felt a little bit unfocused. But I feel like the elements that were there, I all very much enjoyed. Just the mixture could have been better. And what I also really liked was the writing style and also the narration of the audiobook. I think that added a lot to the story, and there were a lot of like very quotable moments also towards the end. There is this this line where it talks about her partner saying that he needs her and that she can't say that back, and that she hopes that one day he will understand that she doesn't need him, but she wants him, and that is even better because it means she has a choice, and she made a choice. And I loved that line. It was so great. So there was yeah, just great writing in this, and the audiobook narration is fantastic. I love the accent. The only criticism I have there is that all of the male characters sound the same. I just really enjoyed listening to the audiobook, and I think that definitely enhanced my experience of this book in general. So, looking back at the 3 books that I have read for this vlog, this definitely did not go the way I thought it would, because none of these books has been close to the quality of other mermaid books I've read before. So honestly, I would recommend The Surface Breaks by Louise O'Neill, or something like The Deep by River Solomon, much more than any of these books. But if I had to rank the 3 that I've read, then American Mermaid would be at the bottom with 3 stars. Then we would have Chlorine with 3.5 stars, and then All the Murmuring Bones with 3.75 to 4 stars. So I hope that this was enjoyable for you to watch. If you have good book recommendations with mermaids, especially dark tales with mermaids, then I would love to hear about that. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye!